Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the reading of the one-shot entitled, Oh No, There's More of Him. Here's the summary. Shouto infects UA with his love for conspiracies. With so many people investigating, will any of them be proved right? At the start of the school year, Todoroki Shouto was the only person in the school that had showed any kind of interest in studying all kind of strange, unpopular, and, dare some people, Izuku say, unhinged theories. Once he started actively engaging with his classmates after he opened his eyes during the fight against his now best friend at the sports festival, the rest of Class 1A was soon exposed to his theories. And, thanks to the school's rumor mill, it barely took a day after that before the rest of UA caught what the poor green-haired hero hopeful had taken to call the conspiracy bug. The epidemic started one unassuming Friday night during a class sleepover in the common room. It had been Mina's idea. She thought it would be a great way for everyone to get even closer and relax after the hell they had gone through when they went to the summer camp. Everyone in the class knew she just wanted her classmates to feel reassured that their explosive friend was truly back with them, safe and sound, and they thankfully didn't bring attention to it. Their original plan of making a movie marathon and a video game tournament went out the window when, in his excitement after his favorite movie won the poll, Kaminari lost control of his quirk and blew the fuses in the whole UA campus. Unable to use any electronic devices, the class had to find a way to entertain themselves together. Momo took it upon herself and created canvases, brushes, and paint to try out an activity that seemed very popular online to do among friends, and, even if they had fun with it, they finished their shared paintings rather quickly. They were 20 kids participating, after all. When everyone started arguing over having their proposals done next, Shouto stood up from his seat on the couch and went to his room. His classmates fell silent as soon as he started walking, worried that they might have made the boy uncomfortable with the noise. Koda was sitting on the floor next to the couch the half-and-half teen had been on, discreetly covering his ears but too worried of making the others in the room feel bad to get away from the confrontation or call attention to himself. They didn't have time to dwell on their thoughts before Todoroki returned, dragging a big, wheeled board covered with a black sheet with him out of the elevator. He positioned it in front of the TV where surely everyone could see it and uncovered it, revealing the pictures stuck on it and the red strings connecting everything. Todoroki had an almost imperceptible smile on his face when he noticed the curiosity in many of his classmates' faces. Not paying any mind to how Izuku was making himself appear small on the couch that they had been sharing with his face in his hands. He'd already seen that board multiple times since they moved into Heights Alliance. Todoroki called him to his dorm at least once a day to show him how much new evidence he had gathered to prove the Greenette his All Might's secret love child. Now that there's nothing to pull your attention from it, I think it's the perfect time to share my research projects with you all, and get your input as outside perspectives. Midoriya can't be a reliable source for most of my theories. Since he's involved in them, he's biased. Said boy groaned. Not that any of his classmates noticed. They were too into Todoroki's investigations to pull their eyes away from the board, much less listen to anything that wasn't the two-toned boy's explanations. They just made so much sense. Who knew they had the son of the #1 hero in their class, or that the hero Hawks was actually a red-tailed hawk with a quirk that made him appear part human, hence why there were so many video compilations of him being distracted by shiny stuff, or that Best Jeanist had a giraffe mutation on top of his quirk that gave him his long neck, and his costume covered it because he also had the spots of their pattern. As the night progressed, a while after Izuku ran to his room to escape the chaos Todoroki had created, Hagakure had the magnificent idea of allowing the members of their sister class to learn the same things they had. Class 1B brought their sensei along, and, while a bit skeptical at first, they all soon opened their eyes as well. By the next morning, All of the first-year classes and some students on the third year were adept followers of Todoroki's theories, and the number kept growing by the minute. Shouto couldn't be happier. When he went down to the common room for breakfast the next day, Izuku had pushed the incident from the night before out of his mind. But the looks his classmates, who were already there, even those known for waking up in the afternoon during the weekend, were giving him brought everything back. He hid his annoyance behind a yawn and let his head hit the table once he arrived to the closest empty seat. He only raised his head when he felt how a plate was put in front of him to find Kachan with his trademark scowl serving everyone the food he just made and stepping out of the way of the Baku squad's morning hugs. "Not while my hands are full, you idiots," he yelled after Kaminari tried to jump on his back. "We're all barefoot, dunceface. If you want to step on soiled rice and ceramic, then be my guest, but don't force everyone else to go through it as well." That got the blonde's overexcited friends to quiet down a bit as they sat down with their breakfast, even if not for long. Izuku was amused by his classmates' antics and quietly enjoying his rice and fish, hoping that nobody would bring up the topic of Todoroki's nonsense theories about him from the night before. Say, Midoriya, Jiro, using one of her jacks to tap him on the shoulder, let him know he had no such luck. "What made you decide to turn your room into a shrine for your dad?" she asked in a monotone voice. Izuku almost choked on his food at that. The rest of the class took Jiro's question as permission to swarm the greenette with questions, overwhelming his barely awake mind. Shouto was sitting a couple chairs away from his friend, feeling slightly off when he looked at the expression on the boy's face. It was guilt, not that he'd understand it for a small while. So he got up to help him get away from the commotion while Bakugo made a fuss to keep their attention off them. The moment Shouto closed the door to the dorms behind them, he turned to look at Midoriya, only to find him surrounded by some members of Class 1B. "It's no wonder All Might is paying so much attention to Class A," Monoma scoffed. "With his precious son in the class. Such favoritism shouldn't be allowed." He got cuffed over the head, with a bit of difficulty due to their height difference, by a light blonde girl with wide blue eyes and horns protruding from her head. A quick glance at the group of students let Shouto know that Kendo, who was usually self-appointed to keep the obnoxious boy in check, wasn't around. Monoma didn't have time to say anything back before a tall boy with glasses and prominent lower canines grabbed him by the shoulder and pushed him to the back of the group. "Excuse our resident brat, Midoriya," he apologized with a slight bow. "There's no getting that attitude out of him, no matter how many times Vlad King sensei gives him detention for antagonizing other classes." Shouto stepped forward before Midoriya got lost in his mumbling, while trying to dismiss the other boy's apology. "He appreciates it," he said, while pulling the greenette closer to him in a side hug, trying to shield his friend from what he now noticed was unwanted attention. "I, too, have to apologize, Midoriya. I shouldn't have shared something about your private life with our classmates without your permission." He didn't notice the shorter boy's attempts to correct him as he kept talking. "And I shouldn't have let our classmates invite people from other homerooms to hear about it as well." Izuku, just tired of not being taken seriously, simply pushed Todoroki away slightly and crossed his arms as he leveled him with the most disappointed look he could muster. "No, you shouldn't have shared this with anyone when you know how I feel about it, Todoroki-kun." Before he could say anything else, Izuku was interrupted by someone clearing their throat. Aizawa Shouto was standing in the shared kitchen of the teachers' dorms, staring into his coffee as he contemplated his life's choices up until that moment. What did he do in this or any of his past lives to deserve the headache that is Todoroki Shouto and his seemingly infectious conspiracy theories? It was bad enough when it was just the boy spewing strange and downright invasive questions out of the blue to anyone that would make the mistake of staying next to him, appearing to have free time. But after last night, Most of the first year seem to follow the two-toned boy as if he's the leader of their cult. A cult dedicated to the most bizarre and unbelievable theories from the deepest pits of the weirdest online forums. Should he start restricting internet access to his hellions now, he's for sure forbidding Todoroki from touching any electronic devices until he graduates. Or he could go the coward way and quit from this job entirely. Maybe then he'll get less migraines and get back to some semblance of a sleep schedule. Well, it's not as if the rat will actually let him do it, but he's allowed to dream, isn't he? His train of thought gets interrupted when his least favorite person from the UA staff, after All Might, the man is too boisterous for his tastes and too inept of a teacher for his sanity to stand, strolls towards him with a grin that Shouto can't help but want to kick off his face. "How's it going this fine Saturday morning, Aizawa?" Sekijiro asks with mirth rolling off him in waves. Shouto can already feel the headache coming in. "I, for one, am doing great. Do you want to know why?" Before he could keep talking, he had the other man's scarf wrapped over his mouth, while its owner sent a quirked glare towards him. "Shut it. It is too early for me to even fake I stand you right now." The second Shouto drops his quirk, as if they were being watched, and, knowing their boss, Shouto had no doubt they were. Nezu's voice comes from the speakers in the building. "Vlad King, would you be so kind as to go to 1A Heights Alliance and have your students stop harassing their fellow heroes in training? Please and thank you." The two men look at each other with twin mixes of fear and exasperation at the principal's antics before Shouto unravels his capture weapon off his co-worker and leads the way to his class's dorm building. When they arrive at the building's front yard, they're met with a group of 1B students surrounding Midoriya and Todoroki, the former of the boys looking at his supposed best friend like a mother would her misbehaving child, with Todoroki looking thoroughly reprimanded. Shouto clears his throat to get the attention of all the kids away from his problem child, and pushes Sekijiro forward to deal with his own brats. Once Sekijiro gets his students back to their dorms, Shouto turns to his own kids, glad to see his look is enough for them to understand he wants an explanation, when Todoroki steps forward. "It was my fault, Sensei. The students from 1B were inquiring Midoriya over the theories I shared with them last night. I'm realizing now the situation I put Midoriya in with everyone else, and no number of apologies will be enough to make up for it." Shouto sighed. He doesn't get paid enough to deal with these teenagers. "I think that's for Midoriya to decide. Don't you agree?" He looks at said student, silently asking if the boy needs him to intervene any further. Midoriya just sends him a small smile as he shakes his head, which Shouto takes as his cue to leave. "I forgive you, Todoroki-kun. But please stop telling people I'm All Might's son, okay?" "I will." Unfortunately, Shouto's promise didn't extend to everyone else in the school. By the time Monday rolled around, every student of every track and year, and most of the teachers, had been infected with the conspiracy bug. Most people were skeptical of everything, but someone else always managed to convince them to believe the stories they were told. All the theories Todoroki Shouto had shared that fateful Friday night were believed as facts. All of them got some attention, but it was the All Might love child scandal that was in everyone's mind, much to Izuku's chagrin. He'd been ranting to his mom about it on the phone the day before, only for the woman to get suspiciously silent before hanging up on him. Izuku found it weird, but decided to just let it be for now and ask her about it the next time she called him. The greenhead couldn't help but ponder over how the nonsense had spread all over the school as he walked towards his classroom for the first lesson of the day, grateful that at least he could trust Aizawa-sensei to remain logical and not fall victim to the insanity infecting everyone in UA. "What's going on, Sho?" He heard the unmistakable voice of his English teacher as he slid open the door to the classroom. Izuku felt bad for eavesdropping, but he could dreadfully sense where this was going, and needed to be sure. How did I not see the similarities before? The boy chanced a small look through the gap that he'd left between the door and the wall, to see the classroom covered in papers connected with red strings, much like Todoroki-kun's board. Problem child is All Might's kid. His worst nightmare had turned real. Aizawa-sensei was infected as well. Sho, babe, now was not the time to have one of Todoroki's theories turn out to be true. You have talked to Midoriya-san over Skype. The kiddo has a dad. Think about it, Zashi. Have we ever met that supposed Midoriya Hizashi in person? Special effects for Skype exist. I guess they do, but think, Zashi. Think. As he saw the voice hero study the papers on the walls more closely and noticed his expression change into one of understanding, Izuku knew his teacher had become another lost cause. The boy left the door slightly open and ran in the direction of the bathroom to splash water on his face. Maybe he'd wake up and find this whole weekend to be a horrible nightmare. As much as All Might was his idol since he was a child, the man was not dad material. On his way to the bathroom, he crossed many other students, all of them whispering as he passed by, which made him speed up whenever he heard a voice until he finally arrived to his destination. Locking the door behind him once he made sure there was no one else inside, and he slid down so his back was against it. He lost track of time as he sat with his head on his knees, hearing 2 bells ring but not being able to acknowledge them. Izuku only reacts when he feels a knock on the door. Jumping to his feet with a yelp and looking back to see Todoroki opening it. Midoriya, you missed homeroom, and English class started 10 minutes ago. Are you okay? Izuku didn't know how to respond, so he kept quiet and let the other boy lead the way back to their classroom. Once they arrived, and the shorter boy noticed that, while the walls were mostly clear, there were still small pieces of paper and a few small strings hanging from some places, Izuku followed his friend inside, without a word to his classmates, only bowing to his teacher. I'm sorry for being late, Mike-sensei. He moved to his seat and didn't look up from his notebook until break, which he chose to spend in the classroom instead of subjecting himself to the stares of the whole school. His classmates asked him if he wanted them to stay as well, but Izuku needed a moment alone. Not that it lasted, as his lunch in solitude was interrupted by the object of his dilemma, awkwardly showing him a tightly wrapped bento, asking to spend the break together. Izuku couldn't tell his idol-turned-mentor no, and he'd honestly appreciate the company of someone who won't pester him with questions he didn't know how to answer. Their foundational heroics class later that day consisted of endurance sparring. Instead of pinning down their opponent, they had to keep going until they exhausted themselves before actually getting hurt, with Aizawa-sensei and All Might monitoring them. Izuku is proud of himself for being one of the students who lasted more before yielding, having to go through 6 opponents before he couldn't fight anymore. He goes to his bag to get some water, splashing some over his head to cool himself on that summer afternoon, the AC of the gym not being enough to alleviate the heat. He's oblivious of his teacher's gazes following him, and even more unaware of his mentor's shocked gasp when Izuku's rebellious hair locks stand on end, after he wets the curls. Is it haircut time again? Izuku groans under his breath. All Might can't believe his successor has his family's bangs that he inherited from his mother. Maybe the faculty had been onto something with those theories he'd been dismissing all day after all. Who is he kidding? It can't be. Young Midoriya turned 16 during the summer camp. That would mean he was born on... Oh, look at that. That was the year Mirai hosted that party with that law firm where he... Oh. Oh no. What else could young Todoroki's theories be right about? Dad Might commits to the bit. It's been a week since Izuku last talked to either his mom or his mentor. All Might is nowhere to be found, and the teachers are of no help. He's tried calling his mom since she missed her weekly time, but Whenever he tries, it goes straight to voicemail. He has no explanation as to why they seem to be avoiding him, and it's getting on his nerves. Has something happened to them? Are they okay? He's preparing to go to class when his door is burst open, and Izuku thanks whatever deity is out there that he was already in his uniform. By Kaminari, who had clearly ran all the way to his room. "Midoriya, you've got mail," he yelled, excitedly jumping in the threshold. Izuku was intrigued. Usually only his mom sent him stuff, and never without telling him to expect it beforehand. He didn't know why the other boy was so happy about it, though. "I'll pick it up in a moment. Thanks for telling me, Kaminari-kun." The blonde laughed, to the brunette's confusion. "I don't think your room is big enough to get everything inside, dude." When Izuku finally made it downstairs, followed by his classmate, he was met with the equivalent of a hill of boxes. The red, blue, and yellow hues he could make out in all the packages, enough for him to know it was All Might merch. A mountain of All Might merch? For him. If he's dreaming, please, do not wake him under any circumstances. A touch on his shoulder almost makes him leap onto the boxes, but he's able to right himself in time to avoid face-planting on the merch. He looks back to find Todoroki extending him an envelope. "It's addressed to you," he explains. When Izuku opens the letter, he's presented with All Might's unmistakable handwriting. "My dear boy, I'm deeply sorry I haven't been available to you this past week. Organizing this mailing was much harder than I thought it would be and required I met with all my representatives. They were not happy I decided to give away so much unreleased merchandise, let me tell you that. But you deserve all. I must also apologize for missing your first 16 birthdays. What kind of father could do that? Anyway, I hope these gifts are able to start making up for my poor behavior as your father, while I put in the work to truly earn your forgiveness. We have much to discuss. Would you join me, your mother, and Midoriya-san for some tea over the weekend? There's no rush, of course. Just tell any of us once you're ready. With love, Dad." Midoriya Izuku.x has stopped working. All right, listeners, this concludes the one-shot entitled, "Oh No, There's More of Him." Let me just start by stating that I am a sucker for Todoroki conspiracies, and I love fics where they touch into that, right? And they really just kind of let Todoroki thrive, or more people start to find out about his theories. This one was so cool in that not only does Todoroki get the support he obviously deserves for his ridiculous mind, but he's actually correct with Izuku being All Might's secret love child. And on top of that, not only are the students involved, but what really got me was when Aizawa was involved too. This logical thinker getting to the point where he starts to believe it as well. So it was just so well done. I found myself laughing a lot throughout this fic. I thought it was great. And oh my gosh, poor Izuku's just going through a whole crisis this entire time. I do like that the author maintained Izuku and Todoroki's relationship and friendship throughout it too. Like they didn't lose that friendship despite the strain from everybody starting to kind of attack Izuku almost with questions and things like that. But anyways, this fic is located on AO3, so I would recommend sliding over, leaving comments, kudos, and support to the author because I feel like this fic has not gotten enough recognition yet. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments below as well. I'd love to hear from you all. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.